All right. Do I need to make it bigger?
Probably. Yeah,
Oh, my stars, yes.
that's good.
Make it bigger, or is this good? Is that all right? All right, we're going to begin. Well, I've got to call on Jenny because she has a frown on her face.
Sorry, I'm just,
So read one.
my son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding.
Okay, this if thing keeps going for a while. So let's look back at it. Notice the my son again. Putting in the mouth of a parent or of a teacher, same effect. If you take my words, and this word means to, it's my commandments. If you treasure them, it's buried hidden treasure. If you treasure up my commandments with you, to incline your ear to wisdom, and you know what wisdom is, and to lean your ear to intelligence, to understanding, if we're going to find out, for if to these two words are related. So understanding, insight, intelligence are all variations on that theme. If to insight shall be ordered, it's that word be not, if you have that list. You cry out. If you call for it. And then this word's identical. And if for intelligence, you give your voice. So what do you see in these expressions? What is the son supposed to be doing? Right. Exactly. You've got to extend some effort. If you do this, if you seek it like silver, okay, and hidden treasure, search for it, then, okay, here's our payoff. You'll understand. So we had 4 or 5 different words based on this word understanding, which is, while it's important, it's not the major word in the wisdom movement. So it's an interesting choice here. Then you'll understand the fear of the Lord. Well, that's interesting. Where did we last have fear of the Lord? Mhm. 1:7. Sorry, man. What are those things? Sausage rolls? He has 3 kids. He used to be a dentist. So then you understand the fear of the Lord. That's interesting that if you do all this, then you understand the fear of the Lord. Because as we said before, it's recognizing he can squash you like a bug, and yet he's not going to. Well, that's not his intent. And knowledge of God you will find.
Or do you think it's more of the understanding that we understand that he won't squash us, or that he could?
The whole concept. It's the whole concept. Yeah, it's the idea that knowing they can squash you like a bug, and yet being in relationship with you, he's not going to. That's a powerful thing. But notice what he does here. And knowledge of God you will find. But what did we say knowledge meant? I gave you a cheating guide. Dot. Experiential knowledge. Then experience of God you will find. That's interesting. Because the experience of God is what's going to inform the fear of the Lord. You had to experience Aslan before you realized he wasn't going to eat you. He could, but that he wasn't.
Also intimacy there, is that really?
Yeah, it's all this close, intimate knowledge, experience of. Again, think of Adam knowing Eve and getting her pregnant. That's where this goes to. For the Lord gives Chokhmah. That's the payoff, the wisdom. From its mouth, knowledge and understanding. There's the big three. Chokhmah, Da'at. It's not Bina, but it's a related word. So the Lord gives wisdom, and from its mouth. Now, all the translations, that's how Hebrew poetry works. If you have a King James, in fact, why don't I just put it up there so you can see it? For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. Italics, what's that mean? Really? Italics is not emphasis. That means it's a word that's added. Okay, for understanding. And they blew it. They got it wrong. What you have is, well, let me do it literally. For Yahweh gives wisdom from its mouth, knowledge and understanding. What would you supply there? For Yahweh gives wisdom. Thank you. It's just the same verb. But King James, I mean, they did a different thing. And then notice what the ESV does. Because you do not go against the King James under risk of life and limb and going broke as a publisher. You just don't. King James rules, even if you're doing a new translation. But it's literally, for Yahweh gives wisdom from its mouth, he gives knowledge and understanding. It's no big deal, but it helps if you, well, it is a big deal. It's not what it says. So the big three that we're after, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, comes from whom? Even though wisdom's crying out in the streets. And that's why experience of God you will find matters. Remember, the wisdom movement is cross-cultural. And as we said, there's a Japanese dad swatting his kid in the back of the head, saying, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Come on, focus. I mean, every dad's told his child that. And I don't know what the female equivalent is, not being a daughter. But those things are universal. That's the nature of wisdom. But this is not just wisdom, it's Yahweh wisdom. And the fact of being Yahweh worshipers is going to play into this. And so it's from Yahweh where wisdom, knowledge, and understanding come. And it's experience of him that is our wisdom, because it's not the same thing. Having experience of an Egyptian god is one thing. As a rule, in the ancient world, you avoided the gods knowing you were alive. You wanted to fly under the radar. Yeah, just, okay, I paid my tithe. Leave me alone. They weren't looking for a relationship with, Ra. Ra saves. No. Let me tell you about Ra. No, that never happened. So, but Yahweh, very much so. He's interested in a relationship. And that's just not words that you use or you find in the ancient world. Buddha, it's an atheistic religion. There is no deity. If there is, it's just this cosmic thing. The Hindus, choose your 1,000. You got 1,000 gods. That was a funny line in Big Bang Theory. Somebody's in the hospital, but you wish you had more than one God now. But anyway, the wisdom movement of the Bible comes from an experience and a relationship with a God who speaks. That hence this. Then you will understand. Fear the Lord. An experience of God you will find. Okay, that's so key. That's not, nobody else talks like that. Huh. Things that make you go, huh.
That's like the seeking you shall find, like you've got to put the effort in.
Well, I'm not so much on that. We add that, but the fact that it's that you have a deity that speaks, that's just unheard of. And we see that over and over. You know, nobody else has a God like this. It's a big deal. He treasures up for the upright or the fair wisdom, success. It's a different word. Translated sound wisdom. It's not even on my list. But tushia, he treasures it up for the upright, a shield to those who walk with integrity. Now, what's that sound like? Walk with integrity. Yeah, exactly. This is keeping the commandments, which is what he prefaces with. You know, if you keep my commandments and all that stuff. So
What's the compliance on it?
thank you. Again, to treasure up, he protects or treasures up the paths of justice. Get down here. Guards is also guards the paths of justice and the way of covenant loyalty. He protects. The wisdom is not a religious. That's where I'm going with this. It involves Torah. And it's for those who are engaged in Torah in this. In keeping the commandments. Well, this is a big word. It's how does he do it? The way of his saints. Okay. And a Hasid. Have you ever heard of the Hasidim? The Jewish people with the. Okay, this is this word. And it means covenant loyalty. Intensely, you're in the covenant and you're going to stay there at all costs. All right. And God, it's a relationship that goes both ways. God is covenantly loyal and we are covenantly loyal. And notice how he translates it. And the way of those that are covenantly loyal, he protects. And they translate it saints. That's not too bad, actually. It's not, we hear saints, we hear holy ones. But what he's saying is his covenanters. I like that. Then you'll understand righteousness and justice and fairness. Remember those three words? That was verse 2. He's repeating it. Then you'll do that. All of that requires a relationship with God, walking in the covenant, being loyal to the covenant. It's the sort of thing you can't get by being on the outside and looking in. You have to be in it and walking it. All the good cow paths. I love Proverbs. It's an agrarian book. How every good path. That's the word cow. calf, literally. So every calf path is good. Yeah, I like a good calf path. Say that, calf path. Calf path. That's kind of hard to do. For wisdom will come into your heart. Now, what did I tell you about your heart? We hear heart, we hear seat of emotions, your personality and stuff. That's actually heart in the Hebrew mindset's your mind. Okay. Kidneys are the seat of your emotions. For wisdom will enter to your heart, and experience for your soul will be pleasant, or knowledge. And knowledge for your soul will be pleasant. Now, that word soul is soul. It's also the word for life. We did the same thing in English. The ship went down and 2,000 souls were lost. You get the idea, but I wouldn't try to press it into an anthropological, well, your soul versus your spirit versus your body. Don't do that. But just your being. Purpose will watch over you, and understanding will guard you. Now, this poem, it's disjointed, it seems to me. It's talking to the sun. This is all the rewards you get. It's not like the one, don't rob the quick trip. That's pretty straightforward. This one's a little more, it's not quite chapter 10 though, where they're disconnected verses, but what you want in success, it's available if you do this. But notice how he ties it into covenant and Torah compliance.
You're welcome.
To deliver you from the evil path, from the men who speak crookedly, perversely. It will deliver you. Huh. Those who abandon the paths of right to walk in the dark paths. It's to protect you from those. Those who rejoice to do evil and delight in the twistedness of evil. This took a dark turn. We notice how it describes the evil. They're delighting in it. And they're doing it. I don't know about you, but don't you get tired of hearing about the 8-year-old kid getting shot in North Tulsa or over at Peoria? And just what's going on? And it's this delight in the perverseness of evil. Those whose paths are twisty and, oh, I don't know these two words, and who are devious in their ways, it says. Oh, there's our calf paths again. And whose calf paths. That letter, and that letter are the word calf. CALF.
It's a cow path because those are too hard to say cow path.
Right?
Yes,
Calf is a cow, right?
calf's a baby cow
That's what I'm saying.
or a baby bovine. Technically, a cow's female. What?
There's no cow in there whatsoever. I mean, it is there, so that seems like a mistranslation of that,
What?
not having cow in there.
Oh, because do you really want to read about calf paths?
I mean, it's true to the.
Yeah, but that's does butterfly have anything to do with either? Well, I guess it does fly, but etymology only goes so far. But I like calf path, so I throw it out. To deliver you from the fornicating woman. A theme that's going to show up more than once. Now, don't read sexism here. The Proverbs are addressed to young men. And it was assumed that you would, by extension, mutatis mutandis, I just made up a phrase. You would,
Sounds like that.
Yeah, I'm writing it down.
you would adjust it for the context if you need it. So if I'm talking to Stephanie, I will change it. But we start off talking to Justin before we start talking to Jordan. Okay, and adapt. That's all that's going on. But it will deliver you from the forbidden woman, from the fornicating woman, who is literal and is not. Because as we all know, unrighteousness is portrayed as this forbidden woman, as this fornicating woman. I don't know why I keep saying forbidden, because it's right there, I guess. But it's a fornicating woman. From the strange woman and her smooth words. What are you laughing at, Nick? Don't lie to me.
Julie just showed me a picture that distracted me of myself.
Oh, okay. Now, that's adulterous. That's just not good. What he's talking about is unrighteousness is seductive. And it's going to come at you. As we've seen. Who abandons the companion, the friend of her youth. We're still talking about the woman again. And the covenant of her God, she forgets. What do you think that's a reference to? No, it's wedding, marriage. She's an adulteress. Again, the whole thing's a metaphor, but she's abandoning all that. 4 sinks down to death, her house. Her house goes down to death. We don't think about this. And to the dead kings, departed spirits, her calf path. We're back to calf paths. Her calf paths lead to the departed spirits. The underworld is going to play a big role as a metaphor, continuing metaphor in Proverbs. Sheol is the abode of the dead. And often translated grave, but that's not what it is. Sheol is where you go when you die. They don't have a concept of afterlife yet. That's later. The pit is death, literally a pit, because what's a grave? But you dig a hole. And come on in, sweetie. Name tags for what?
5 years after that. I'm not gonna check for it. I'll go with it.
Name tags. 8:08. It's time. Thanks.
So one thing, just in the break there, I was looking at half a path. They describe it as kind of like a rut. So thinking of it as, getting stuck in a rut.
A well-worn.
I also think of it like as a game trail. So for instance, if you go into forests that are very dense, the only best way to move through it is through a game trail. Otherwise, it's gonna take you 2, 3 times, 4 times as long. Maybe not necessarily a rut, but like a path that you can follow or go on. That's kind of what I think of.
And then you can see it even though the animal that you're following isn't there.
Yeah.
And it's tempting to go down. 'cause it's easier.
A calf path is not a bad thing. It's a thing. There are good calf paths and there are bad calf paths. It's a calf path. Just watch the calf go. But just astute observation. Not being a hunter, I'd not think of those things.
With, so we have well-worn paths within our brain, so it makes sense that it's, we
Yes.
break down the paths we've already made in our brain because those connections are so strong.
And I'm not a neurologist either, so, but still. Okay, but, well done. All who enter to her will not return. Or if you will, none who enter to her will return. Yeah, it's a dark path to go to this one. They do not find again paths of life. That's a pretty strong warning. Yeah, well, this isn't theology, this is wisdom. Thank you. Who is that? Oh, Daniel's daughter, okay. Olivia. I got John right?
So far.
Okay.
Wait till next week.
Olivia, I'll remember, but in order that you walk in good paths and paths of righteousness, you will guard. So that's what we want to do. For the fair, the upright, I keep saying fair because it's a play on this word. For the upright dwell or live in the land, and those with integrity abide in it. But the wicked, this sounds like Psalm 1, but the wicked are cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out from it. So chapter 2 was different. It echoes what's coming. The next poems will be a little more self-contained, but this one was self-contained to some degree. What's the takeaway from what we read today in Proverbs?
In order to get understanding, wisdom, knowledge, you have to be active in the process, and it has to be in a relationship with God more than you choose. That's the first part. It's kind of focused on like you have to be in an intimate relationship with God.
And what sort of relationship? Yes. And what else? Covenantal relationship. So again, not generic religious experience, but a specific Yahweh worship experience. It's in worshiping our Lord as he lays it out in Torah. This isn't the prophets. It's not a call to Torah per se, but it is. But the payoff of the Torah, it's the wisdom. Remember in Deuteronomy 3, which is the book of Deuteronomy is a giant speech by Moses. It's his farewell speech before he dies. Giant speech. And he starts it off with the whole thing of why Torah? Why the law? Basically, it's our philosophy. It gives us our philosophy for life. If you want to know how to live the good life, which is what philosophy's after, that's the Torah. That's what it's for. And that's what we're seeing echoed here. And he hinted at the very beginning, but now he's kind of spelling it out. You got to be a covenantal relationship, guarding the commandments, doing them, and not so much for preservation of life. There's an immediate payoff in that this gives you wisdom. It's not do this or die. It's do this and no.
Do this and you'll find cow paths that lead to places that you want to go.
Calf pass, boy. Good calf pass. Yes, exactly. And you avoid things like the adulterous woman or the wicked guys. He covered both of them. And you'll recognize them and you won't go down that path. Well, yes. Any other comments? See, when you do that, I don't know if you're just so bored out of your freaking mind. You don't know what to do. Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
That's interesting. I read the scriptures last week. I do this thing with my kids this year where I bought one of those old label makers where you kind of turn and you click and, turn the tape. And I'll give them scriptures every now and then. And Proverbs 1:10 was one about looking out for people who are trying to incite you to wrong and to turn away from that kind of thing. So I clicked out the verse and truncated version of it with the message basically. But I thought it was really neat wisdom that, read Proverbs out many times, but it was interesting just to see that right up front in the first chapter. And so I'm enjoying this.
Good.
I have one question. Is there a Hebrew version of Scrabble? And have you ever played it with like those symbols?
With the alphabet,
Yeah.
those symbols. I have never played Hebrew Scrabble.
Have you ever seen a version of it?
It's Israel. Surely
Be a crazy game.
there is. What's a Hebrew Scrabble? There's got to be a Hebrew Scrabble. It's just that that'd be interesting because the vowels aren't written. And yeah, and you would sit there and you go, that's a word. Yeah, look it up. That's your assignment. I am.
Arguing this cat has
All right. I'm gonna stop sharing so we can see Rick and Lori and Sally Ann. What?